Hey, welcome back to Rust Order Garage and the $5,000 budget build 56 Chevy pickup. If you saw my last video where I did the eBay wiring harness installation, you know now the truck's running, which is fantastic. She fires right up. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Well, not a whole bunch, but you know, some things to go over before I continue on. I'll show you some stuff I did while I was getting ready for the first start, things I didn't video, but because it would have been boring. But most of it was just preparing for the first start on the engine. Before we do that, let's go over the budget. We'll add in all the stuff for wiring the truck. Okay, so here's where we stand on the budget so far, and I already screwed up. It's just one of those days, I think. That's all I can say. So, for all the wiring on the truck, first thing was the eBay wiring harness. That was $80. Cost me $80. So that got the value of the truck to $54.73, out of pocket $2228. Now the body wiring harness, I used a wiring harness from a parts car I had many years ago, a 1987 Monte Carlo Super Sport, so it didn't cost me anything. Now, if you had to buy a universal GM type wiring harness off eBay, they're pretty cheap. I mean, I listed it as value as $75, but I think you could even do better than that. So counting it at $75, it gets the truck to $55.48. Out of pocket, $2228 because it cost me nothing, so no change there. Ignition switch, I had to buy a universal ignition switch. That was $19. That got the truck to $55.67. Out of pocket, $22.47. I put a 12-volt power port in the dash. Kind of stupid to buy that because really you could use a cigarette lighter, you know, port out of one of these parts trucks. But for some reason I bought these things. I don't know why. And they were $10, so that got the truck to $55.77, out of pocket $22.57. I had to buy a floor mount dimmer switch because this harness was originally from Monte Carlo and they had the dimmer on the stalk. Now, I don't buy them new. I buy them at swap meets for next to nothing. I have piles of them. But if you were to buy a new one, it'd cost you $10. I counted it as a $10 value and a $5 out of pocket, which is still probably not what I paid, probably a couple bucks. But anyway, that got the truck to $55.87, out of pocket $22.62. And then the last thing, miscellaneous relays and a service engine soon light. I bought a little light to put in the dash. I'm using some relays, a starter relay, and I wired in a relay for the AC compressor. Stuff's next to nothing, $10 across the board. That gets the truck value to $55.97, and out of pocket $22.72. So we're still way under the $5,000 budget. There is some larger expenses coming up though. So some things I did to prepare for the first start. Obviously, I put the accessory drive back on, hooked up my power steering. That cost me nothing because those power steering hoses are actually the factory Jaguar ones. They work fine. The pressure line is a little long, but if you loop it around, it fits right into the truck power steering pump. No changes at all. And then the return line, you just trim down the hose, again, from the factory Jag line and hook it up. So that costs nothing. This is all, like I said, the 87 Monte SS wiring harness, the body harness. This is my front lamp harness that I'll trim down once I get the front end on and see how things are going. That stuff's all wired up. I wired up the AC compressor. We will go over that. I'm going to have the computer control that compressor. So we'll go over that kind of stuff there. There's my relay for the compressor up there. Still not sure if I'm going to run an electric water pump or not. An electric fan or not. I'm looking at the water pump, so I'm thinking water pump. Electric fan or not. If I can use a mechanical fan, I'm going to. I reinstalled the factory transmission lines. They're just looped for now, so I could do that first start. But there's nothing wrong with them, and there's no need to switch to AN lines or anything like that. And I've actually looked these up online to see how much new ones are, and they're really reasonable. So if they were rusted, I think I would just stick with the factory lines. And I think that's about it for out here. Of course, I'm probably forgetting something because I'm not thinking about it. Only when I was doing the work, I'm thinking about it. But any questions, you know, throw it up on the bottom in the comments, and I'll get to it. So let's look inside the truck. So inside the truck, obviously, like I said, the body harness is pretty much done. We've got working dome lights, working under dash lights, all tied into both door jambs. I had to add switches. I just used the factory jam switches from that 87 Monte Carlo, and they're working out just fine. There's my power port that I spent $10 on, but whatever, it's there. It's got USB on it. What else? There's my ignition switch. We talked about that before. Dimmer switch on the floor now. I mounted my PCM up under the dash. So that's done. This is going to be my trigger wire out of whatever HVAC unit I use. This will go out to the high pressure switch on the compressor, but we'll talk about that. Got a neutral safety switch wired in, so that's all good. And I think that's about it from in here. Horn works. It's not wired, but you can hear the horn relay clicking there, so that's all good. Everything is pretty much ready to go. So yeah, other than gauges, which is going to be the next thing coming up, we'll get talking about that. But I think what I would like to do is get started on the front end sheet metal of this truck. So full disclosure, I don't know about these trucks. I've never owned a 55 to 57 pickup truck. I don't know how they go together. The nose on this truck was completely disassembled when I got it. I believe I have everything. I have the inner fender wells, the fenders, lower valance, the grill, upper valance, hood. I think that's everything. You know, I'll find it as I go along. But I believe I have, and radiator support, I believe I have all the major pieces. Now, because of it being all blown apart, there was no hardware. So I bought what is supposed to be a 55, I think it's 55 to 59 front end hardware kit. You know, is there a part number? What does this thing say? I don't know. That's the part number. Really doesn't say anything on it. But I don't know if this is really made for this truck or it's just a bunch of universal hardware, because a lot of it just looks like the same stuff as if I was putting a Nova or a Chevelle together. But it is a lot. But these just look like standard body screws and shims and the you know, the regular old spring clips. I don't think this is specific to the truck, because this should have specific bolts for like radiator support to the frame and all that kind of stuff. So we'll be winging it and making something work. But first, let me get all my parts out and see what I have. Okay, I am figuring it out. I don't know if you saw the earlier videos on this, but I talked about this truck when I bought it. It was all blown apart, and I found like half the hardware. Just hints here and there. And sure enough, I looked up what the radiator support should be mounted, how it should be mounted, and I saw the hardware, and I found maybe 3/4 of the hardware was here. So I had to make some rubber spacers for the fibers that were missing. I've got some rubber sheet there. I just cut them out. I had the bolts, most of the washers, and I had to make, they use little sleeves. I had to replace one sleeve and make my own. I had one of them. Same thing with the inner fender. I just got it bolted up. I just had to cut a very small piece out of the bottom to clear the control arm. And I found the fiber washers for the mount there, and bolts, new bolt, and that's that. So mocking it up, so far so good. I think I have to put the fender on and make sure everything lines up. But I'm going to put the other inner fender on now and see what we're looking like. Work continues. So I've got both inner fenders on, and I put in the radiator that came with the original truck, and that I'm hoping is good. And everything is looking okay except for one problem. Mechanical fan looks real good. I just spun that on now just to see what the clearances would be, and if I can use it, it's perfect. My problem is the lower radiator hose. I don't know if it shows right on the video, but it's going to be some pretty tight angles there to get a hose on that. Now I can get a swivel water neck to put on that, but I don't know if it'll clear the AC compressor. I've got to check that. And that's the only thing that I'm going to have to do some head scratching on. I got to come up with something for the lower hose. Upper hose is going to be a little bit of a pain as well. It's got to clear the air intake and such, but it won't be nearly the head scratcher that is going to be. But everything right now is bolted on. I'm going to hang a fender on it and just see if the gaps are good or if I have to shim the radiator support up. But it's, so far I'm figuring it out. These trucks are pretty simple. There's not a whole lot of bolts holding them together, so get a fender on and see what it looks like. All right, I got the driver's side fender on and no room to really show you what it looks like. It's a little high. It's about 3.5 inches over the tire. But what I found with these Jag suspensions is they're going to settle out. Once the truck is all assembled and the coolant's in it and you start driving it around, it usually comes down a little bit. But even if it doesn't, I can cut a half a coil or something off of this. It's not a big deal. I can tell right now that the suspension is not set down where it will be at ride height. You can see I'm barely off the bump stops. That should be about 1 inch higher than that at say ride height when it's all done. So if I have to take a little bit off of the coils, I will. But it's looking good. I got my gaps good. It's all shimmed up. It was not a slap together, but it works. And it's cool because it's starting to look like a truck. But I can't do this side yet because I want room to work, because I have got to figure out this lower radiator hose. That is going to be the next thing to deal with. And if you've seen my other video about the LS coolant systems, you remember that different year water pumps can or cannot use a 2-piece thermostat housing. This should be a 1-piece with the thermostat mounted into the housing. You can switch to a separate thermostat and then, a swivel neck or something, but not all water pumps will accept that. So I'm hoping this one will. So I'm gonna have to pop that thermostat housing off and see if it's gonna work. All right, so here's what I'm working with here. This is the original thermostat housing. 1 piece, does not come apart. I'm going to switch to a separate thermostat, and this is a swivel housing, so I'm hoping I can get it to go straight down and fit. These housings come with an O-ring. I don't know why, because this is the only seal that should be needed right there on the thermostat. You should be able to just crank that down and not leak. At least that's the idea. We'll see what happens. Well, there's the water neck I need to use, and that is not gonna fit. It's not gonna make it. So, working on this, thinking about this, I have to see what I'm gonna do here. I have room. If I wanted to space, say, the AC compressor out further from the engine, I've got, a couple inches to the frame. So I'm wondering if I made tubular spacers or something and brought the compressor further away from the engine and then just went with a longer belt. That may work. Unfortunately, this is just not gonna. It would be nice if that water neck was out a little bit further. I'll have to look online and see what's available. I know there's a straight available, but that's not going to work because I don't have enough room to cut the 90s down to the lower outlet on the radiator. So this is going to be a little bit of a problem. We'll figure it out, but if not for air conditioning, it wouldn't matter. All right, well, I'll have to look into that. So I will end this video here for now. And if you're curious, I am using a stock 187 degree thermostat. I don't know why like 160 or 180 or anything other than stock. The thermostats are very expensive. Stock ones are not expensive. And, stock runs around 200, 205. I think I usually run around, which is fine. These engines are made to do it. So I'll just stick with a stock thermostat. I don't think this one's marked, but they're always, 187 is always the stock reading. And also all of this hardware here, in no way is this specific to this truck. Basically, I just bought a big bag of nuts and bolts. So, you know, whatever. I'll use some of it, very little of it actually, but, you know, we'll be doing many more builds coming up, so this stuff will just get used. Everything I have here, I'm looking around like, yeah, we're going to need hardware, so it'll get used in the other ones, so is what it is. All right, so when we come back, hopefully I'll have some kind of solution for that, and we will work on lower radiator hose, upper radiator hose. I still don't know what I'm going to use for HVAC, the unit. I have to figure that out, decide that, and yeah, but, you know, we'll just keep buttoning this up. So I guess that's it. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for following along. Thank you for subscribing. Get a lot of new subscribers. I really appreciate it. So see you on the next one. Later.